Okay, I've let everyone in the waiting room if you all wanted to go ahead and get started.
Yeah, we can do that. All right, first and foremost, I'd like to welcome everyone to this meeting tonight. My name is Jay Webb and I serve as chair for the Criminal Justice Advisory Commission. Hope everybody had a safe and wonderful Thanksgiving and that everybody was safe and that, your families were doing well. The purpose of the Criminal Justice Advisory Commission is to monitor by identifying and addressing issues across the justice continuum, to review by following and evaluating and assessing cases, analyze, to conduct studies as well as identify patterns, trends, and systematic issues, educate by advocating, engage with institutions and agencies, and identify alternate approaches to criminalization, advise, work throughout the justice system, including GPD and the court system, and to report, communicate through regular reports, and interact with the public. I think, some of you may have heard this before, but I think it's important each time to be sort of clear about what the Criminal Justice Advisory Commission does so that, when we're getting information, we kind of stay in the wheel that we're charged to do. Also, I'd like to give you the names of the commissioners that represent their districts. Commissioner Quentin Brown, District 1, Commissioner DJ O'Brien III, District 4, Commissioner Suzanne Nazem, District 5, Commissioner Frank Ajala, District 5, Commissioner Steve Freeland, District 4, Commissioner Consuelo Connie Brown, District 2, Commissioner Lakeisha K. Brown, District 2, and Commissioner Tom Phillips, District 3. The Criminal Justice Advisory Commission meets every third Thursday of the month via Zoom and is open to the public. At this point in time, I'd like to turn it over to Commissioner Frank Ajala.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Commissioner Frank Ajala. I am one of the GCJAC commissioners, and I also serve on the PCRB, the Police Community Review Board. We are the ones that are bringing this presentation to you today. And the purpose of the PCRB is to review complaints filed against a member of the Greensboro Police Department after these complaints have been investigated and ruled upon by the Police Department's Professional Standards Division. I must emphasize that neither the PCRB nor the GCJAC investigates any of these police complaints. We are just a selected group of citizens appointed by the mayor and city council to review police complaints. And we look at all the reports made, the body-worn camera, and then make our recommendations without bias or prejudice against the police or the citizen who filed a complaint. All police complaints reviewed by the PCRB are held in the utmost confidentiality. We cannot discuss any of these cases for any reason whatsoever. The PCRB members include our GCJAC chair, Mr. Jay Webb. We also have Mr. Tom Phillips, who is the vice chair and the PCRB chair, actually. We have Mr. Quentin Brown. He's a member of the PCRB as well as the GCJAC. We have Ms. Suzanne Nazem. We have Kay Brown. We have Mr. DJ O'Brien. And we also have myself, Franca, as part of the PCRB. Our esteemed colleagues, including Connie and Mr. Stevens Friedland, are members of the GCJAC, but not part of the PCRB. Before I present our presenter to you today, before I announce him today, I just wanted you guys to know that we will be having a question and answer session after our presenter presents. He's part of the program. And also, if you do have your cameras on, just be mindful of that because we will be watching what you're doing at all times. So, just be very mindful of the cameras and also to mute yourselves as soon as, if you want to do something else so we don't get distracted. I have the privilege of introducing Captain Tabler, D. Tabler. He is a respected member of the Greensboro Police Department. He's a native of Cape May, New Jersey, and the son of Methodist minister. He moved to North Carolina in 1992 and obtained a degree in criminal justice from Methodist University in Fayetteville, North Carolina. He later joined the Greensboro Police Department in June of 1997 and has won many awards since then for excellence and outstanding performance. Captain Tabler began his career in the Patrol Bureau and was assigned to the division serving East Greensboro. He was later promoted to lieutenant and has served as watch commander, Southern Division Executive Officer, as well as Executive Officer for the Professional Standards Division. We would also like to congratulate him on his newest role, assuming command of the Professional Standards Division on November 1st, 2020. So congratulations, Captain Tabler, for that newest promotion. So he is now in charge of the Professional Standards Division. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome Captain Tabler from the Professional Standards Division, who will be going over the complaint process with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I appreciate the introduction. As Ms. Jala noted, I'm Captain Doug Tabler with the Police Department's Professional Standards Division. I'm humbled that Chief James would select me for this position, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. And hopefully we can provide some clarity into how to file a complaint with the police department and give some insight into how that complaint process proceeds as it moves through not only the Professional Standards Division, but through the department as a whole. I also have here with me tonight Lieutenant Tony Tunstall, who is the Executive Officer for our Professional Standards Division. In terms of how to file a complaint, the easy answer is we'll take complaints by whatever means or method that makes you most comfortable. We've taken complaints by mail, email, telephone. We'll accept the complaint in whatever form you wish to file it, but the easiest and most direct ways would be by telephone, our online complaint form, or in person. So the first of those options I mentioned is to call the Professional Standards Division directly. Our office is staffed Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So during that time frame, somebody is here to take the initial information from you for the complaint. The direct line to the Professional Standards Division is 336-373-2468. And that phone number is listed on the main page of the police department's website. It's actually about halfway down on the right-hand side. When you call, the more information you can provide detailing the incident and identifying the officers involved, the easier it is for us to follow up and investigate. Of course, if you call after hours or on the weekend, you can leave us a message and somebody from our office will call you back on the next business day. So calling us directly is one way to file a complaint. A second option would be through our online complaint form. The main page of our police department, you'll see an icon that says, I want to. When you click on that icon, you'll find the option to file a complaint with GPD. This is an online complaint form that asks for basic information pertaining to your complaint. It'll ask for your contact information, the nature of the complaint, names of officers involved, and then it gives you a free text box where you can provide a brief synopsis over the incident which led to your complaint. Those online complaints come directly to the email box of the Professional Standards Division captain and lieutenant. So we'll receive those and then we'll subsequently assign those to an investigator. So telephone, online complaint form, and then the third option or third way that we usually get them is to come to the police department in person, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Our office is located at 320 Federal Place in downtown Greensboro. Any citizen can come into the lobby through the main entrance and speak to our folks in either the Records Division or Watch Operations Center and request to speak with somebody from Professional Standards. We'll send an investigator down to the lobby and gather the necessary information to start that complaint process. We've taken complaints by mail. There's some folks that like to provide documentation to support their complaints, so they'll reach out by mail. That's also another method used, but the most common ways to file a complaint against a Greensboro police officer or our non-sworn employees are, like I said, one of those three ways, by in-person, telephone, or that online complaint form. So what happens after we receive the complaint in terms of the process that takes place? Once we receive a complaint, it's reviewed by either the captain or the lieutenant of the Professional Standards Division to determine what the appropriate course of action would be for handling the complaint. After that initial review, the captain or lieutenant, we assign it to an investigator within our division. Currently, we have 6 investigators. They all hold the rank of sergeant. And we try to do our best to divvy up the number of complaints so that we can get we can stay consistent with the amount of time that it takes to complete the investigations. We set a time frame of about 45 days for the investigations to be completed, but that can certainly be, it can change because it's impacted by things like an inability to make contact with witnesses, or sometimes the actual complainant won't respond after the initial complaint is filed. In those instances, we still investigate the complaint, and if we see a violation, we'll actually address it as we would have otherwise. Once the investigator gets the complaint, they immediately begin looking into the allegation to determine what occurred. They'll likely call the complainant back to get a more detailed statement. They'll start reviewing body-worn camera footage, review dispatch notes, any other information that's pertinent to the incident. If they determine that we do in fact have a policy relating to the complaint, for example, a citizen says an officer was rude, that's a potential policy violation because we do have a policy pertaining to courtesy. Well, at that point, they'll move forward with the complaint. The investigator will send the citizen a letter acknowledging that they're moving forward with the complaint or the investigation. That letter will be addressed from me, the commanding officer of professional standards, but it'll contain the name of the investigator assigned to the case. And then it will have contact information for the investigator in case the citizen needs to contact the investigator during the investigation. So after sending that letter, the investigator will continue to investigate. They'll look they'll interview folks, whatever other interview techniques or investigative techniques are necessary. If in the course of the investigation, we observe policy violations that are in addition to the allegations made by the citizen, we'll address those as well and actually add them to the complaint. So for example, if we're investigating an officer for being rude and we find that the officer failed to turn their body-worn camera on, we'll attach that violation to our investigation in addition to what the citizen may have complained about. When the investigation is complete, the investigator will send the investigation to either the captain or the lieutenant of the Professional Standards Division for review. That review by the captain or lieutenant is just to make sure the investigation is fair and thorough. We don't determine the outcome of an investigation. We just investigate the complaint and put the facts into an investigative report that we then send to a division commander or a deputy chief for adjudication, meaning that they're going to determine if the officer violated the policy, and if so, decide what corrective action to impose on the officers. And the reason I say it would go to either a division commander or a deputy chief is because we have certain policies which, if violated, rise to the level of a deputy chief for review, like any bias-based complaints, truthfulness, which could lead to termination, excessive force, abusive position, things of that nature would rise to a deputy chief's level for adjudication. When we send the investigation to the deputy chief or the commanding officer, we give them everything that's associated with the investigation. They get their written report, body-worn camera footage, they get all the audio of the interviews, everything they need to make their determination on the case. Before a final decision on corrective action is made, the officer is afforded an opportunity to have what's called a board hearing. A board hearing is not mandatory, but all officers do get a choice on whether they'd like to have one. And what a board hearing is it's an opportunity for the employee to speak directly to the commanding officer or the deputy chief that's adjudicating the complaint, as well as his or her chain of command. And it just gives them a chance to explain their actions for the incident that's being investigated. We include a representative from City's Human Resources Department as part of that process. They're there for an additional bit of oversight, and they'll just serve the board in case there's any questions pertaining to corrective action. Once the officers had an opportunity to speak and the board members have reviewed the entire investigation, they provide input to the chair, the commanding officer, or the deputy chief, and a decision is made on corrective action or the outcome of the investigation. And I'll say this about corrective action. We look at corrective action as a way to modify behavior and prevent it from repeating itself. I think most people view corrective action as punitive, meaning the officer gets a reprimand or they get suspended or something of that nature. Those types of punitive measures are certainly a part of corrective action, but it may also include things like remedial training. We may transfer an officer, we might prohibit them from working outside employment, or we could put them on a work plan where we closely monitor their daily activities. So corrective action, although people tend to think punitive in nature, it's really all encompassing. So if the officer receives any form of corrective action, they have 10 days to appeal the discipline to the next level within the chain of command. So for example, an officer appealing corrective action administered by a deputy chief would file an appeal with the chief of police, and they have 10 days to do so. Once the appeals process plays out, or a case is given final disposition, meaning it's closed and complete, a findings letter is sent to the citizen who lodged the complaint. This letter will simplify or simply notify the citizen that their complaint has been thoroughly investigated and lets them know whether or not there's sufficient evidence to substantiate their complaint. It'll also provide some information which explains the process for appealing to the Police Community Review Board should they be unsatisfied with the investigation that we've done in professional standards. Once the investigation is adjudicated and officially moves, it comes back to professional standards where the captain or the lieutenant gives it one final review before closing it out and storing it in the employee's personnel file. At that point, the case is considered closed, and any further requests for follow-up on the part of the community member would be handled by the PCRB or Police Community Review Board. So that should summarize how to file a complaint with us and give some insight into the complaint process. I know it's a lot of information, but I wanted to make sure I touched on every aspect of the process to give some perspective into how much goes into each complaint. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and hope that was helpful.
Thank you so much, Captain Tabler. That was very informative. You definitely gave an insight as to what the process looks like. And I think a lot of our citizens need to know and understand it so that they can actually utilize it to the best of their abilities. Next, I'll introduce my colleague, Tom Phillips. He is going to go over the PCRB and explain how a person can have their determination letter reviewed and processed. And he's going to just talk a little bit more about the PCRB to everyone. And he's one of the PCRB members that has been on for quite some time, a very experienced gentleman. So without further ado, this is Tom Phillips. Go ahead.
Thank you. I am currently the chairman of the PCRB, and I have been around for quite a while. What I would first like to do is kind of let you know how we got to where we are today, and then I'll talk about the process. The city's had a complaint review committee, and that's what it was called for years under the Human Relations Commission. Consisted of 5 members. About 6 years ago, the city council started looking at wanting to make changes, and in 2016, they created the Police Community Review Board, or as I'll call it the rest of the night, the PCRB. And that consisted of 9 members, and it didn't take long before the council realized that they were still dissatisfied with the process. We did a study, and we found out that everybody was dissatisfied. The general public, the police department, the commission members, and the city council. A group of us attended a national conference on civilian oversight of law enforcement in 2017, and came back and recommended the creation of the Criminal Justice Advisory Commission that was going to look at bigger issues, and then having the PCRB under that, and having both commissions under a separate department under the city manager's office. The council agreed with that, but we had to get the state law changed, and that happened in the summer of 2018, and the council immediately appointed people in August, and we got started. Now, I mentioned that we had to get state law changed. Most of the public doesn't realize how much the state legislature controls what we can do in the city, and that certainly applies to what the PCRB can do. And a lot of the dissatisfaction that's resulted over the years is people have expectations that we should be doing things that we're not allowed to do by state law. We're heavily controlled. And that comes to, what Franca mentioned early in the meeting, is that we're not an investigative body. As our name implies, we're a review body, and we cannot discipline police officers. A lot of people would say, well, how can the police themselves? And if you look around the country, they're all different models, but a lot of them are similar to ours. If you look at the statistics in 2019, 34% of the time the police department agreed with the person who was making a complaint. And data that I saw, it's a few months old, in 2020, police department agreed with the complainant 45% of the time. So I would say that the police department does listen. Now, what we do is, and Frank had indicated that, is we review the process. We look at the files of the investigation of professional standards to make sure it was thorough, it was unbiased, and that the right conclusions were reached, at least in our opinion. You heard about the process of making a complaint from Lieutenant Tabler. So what happens if you've complained and they've sent you a letter and you disagree with it? Well, you can let them know that you want to file an appeal. And he indicated in the letter, it tells you what to do, but also contact our administrator, Letitia McNeil. Her number is readily available on the city's website. And I think also if you Google PCRB in Greensboro, her phone number will come up there. So when you do that, Letitia will gather information from you about your appeal. She will then get all of the files from the police department, all interviews that were done, all reports that were done, absolutely everything, including body-worn camera footage. And there's where state law comes into play again. We have to get a court order approved for us to be able to see the body-worn camera footage. Now, once she's gotten that all together, she sends that to all of the commission members for our review. We try to get this process done within 60 days. We'll set up a meeting, and at that meeting, we'll review the body-worn camera footage. Now, out of that, can come three decisions. One, we agree with the Professional Standards Division, and we send a letter to the complainant as well as notify the department. The second is, if we disagree, we can ask for a conference with the chief and review our disagreements with him. If we don't reach a resolution there, we can then request that it be reviewed by the city manager. Now, if that happens, we'll send you a letter letting you know that the city manager will be in contact with you. Now, in addition to that, when we're reviewing a case, if we see that things could have possibly been done better, even though they were within the rules, we can let the department know that. And also, if we think policies need to be changed, we can do that. And then one final thing I'll say, Lieutenant Tabler mentioned they send you a letter, we send you letters. You won't be happy with any letter you receive, because he can't and we can't explain our rationale to you. Again, that's under state law, we can't do that. So you either hear we agreed or disagreed, but we can't tell you why. And hopefully someday we'll be able to get that changed. So before we go on to questions, if there's any other commissioners who want to make any comments about the process, feel free to do so. Hey, then Connie, I believe you're on board for taking care of questions.
I don't have any, I don't see any right now. If someone has a question, they can either put it in the chat or go ahead and ask it now, but I don't see any at this time.
Okay.
Before we go further, I just wanted to acknowledge our City Council member, Sharon Hightower, who joined us. I just wanted to thank you, Councilwoman Hightower, for always being present and very supportive towards this commission and to the work that we do and being a part of our community. So I just wanted to take a moment to just acknowledge Sharon Hightower, who joined us before we go on to additional questions. Thank you so much, Sharon Hightower.
You're welcome. Thank you. It's good to see everyone.
It's good to see you as well.
Interesting subject, so I wanted to be here. Thank you.
Okay, there is a question that has come up. It's from Miss Terry Goldberg. It states, does anyone's statistics as to number of complaints? So I guess she's asking, does anyone have the number for, as it relates to the statistics of complaints, what they're about, and have they increased or decreased over time?
I can tell you this, that for the year of 2020, we've had 70 complaints. It's mixed, everything from arrest, search, and seizure to courtesy, bias-based complaints. That number is fairly consistent with what we ended with last year at 61 complaints. And it's actually down. I think in 2018, we had almost 100 complaints filed with the Greensboro Police Department. So it stays fairly consistently between 60 and 100 in that area.
I actually had a question myself. Because of the process, it appears that it can be lengthy. Is there someone that is kind of contacting the complainant and letting them know, you know, kind of where we are or where you all are in the process, that you're still reviewing it, that is not it's not laying dormant? Like, is there someone that's kind of following up with the complainant?
That's the investigator's job to do that. And of course, like I said, we provide them with the phone number for the investigator to where they can contact them directly to their desk line at any time if they have questions about where the investigation's at.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
We have another question from Ms. Austin. Are officers afforded the opportunity, sorry, it shifted on me. Are officers afforded the opportunity to review all the evidence against them in the professional standards investigation before they are interviewed?
They are given access to their body-worn camera. They can watch the body-worn camera. Of course, they can read the reports that they wrote. But then they're also afforded due process as the investigation takes place and they're up for adjudication before they go to that board hearing. They're actually afforded the opportunity to review it at that time too.
Okay. Before we go to the next question from Ms. Austin, I believe Mary Nell Smith had her hand up. Yes, Ms. Smith.
I got two. One's just
Okay.
nosy. What does happen if an officer doesn't turn his body camera on? Is there a punishment? Is there a fine? Does it build? What happens?
Yeah, so that would be an administrative investigation, and it would go to his commanding officer to determine what the corrective action would be. Most of the time, they consider how many times has this officer done this before? Did he do it on purpose? So that commanding officer would determine what level of corrective action the officer would get for not turning his body-worn camera on.
So it varies. Well,
Yes.
And then Mr. Phillips, you mentioned that in 2018 we had to actually get a North Carolina law changed, but I wasn't clear. Was that about body cameras, or what was that law that had to be changed?
No, that just was to allow the Criminal Justice Advisory Commission and the PCRB to exist.
I mean, there was a law that you couldn't have one, huh?
Well, in order to have one starting in 2016, we had to get a law changed to have the PCRB, and then to make the changes that we wanted to make to create the Criminal Justice Advisory Commission, we had to get the law changed again. The legislature really controls the cities. I mean, they could take a city's charter away at any time they wanted to. They have that much power.
So are you saying we were the first city in North Carolina to do this?
No, no, we weren't the first city, but it's a local bill, so you have to get it. You get it approved. It isn't for any city has to get their own bill approved. And Durham has one, Charlotte has one, I think Asheville. I'm not sure what other cities. In Winston-Salem has one. Most of the larger cities have some form of police review board.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next question is, what is the length of time between the occurrence of a critical incident, for example, such as an officer-involved shooting, and when involved officers are interviewed by the professional standards investigators?
So that will vary. Reason being is they're actually investigated criminally for an officer-involved shooting before we even enter the picture. So, you know, a criminal investigation into a shooting of that nature would have to be investigated. It would go to the district attorney's office for them to review it. Once that criminal investigation is over, then we would come in and do the administrative investigation. So it could be months before we'd interview the person involved in that.
Okay.
And,
is there a certain amount of investigative experience required before a detective may apply to join the Professional Standards Investigative Division?
So like I said, all of the investigators in here have attained the rank of sergeant, which means they've got quite a bit of experience and training. I'll be honest with you, for me bringing people in here, I'm more concerned about the character and what kind of person they are. Obviously, their investigative skills are important, but I can teach some of that stuff. But the character is what's most important.
Okay, and kind of a follow-up to that, are the supervisors that are in the chain of command or the Professional Standards Bureau, are they able to edit the final investigation, and are they able to change the conclusion of the assigned investigator?
No. So when we complete an investigation, it goes up through that chain. They can make a comment as it goes through that, but they can't do anything with the investigation itself. Once that decision is made by the deputy chief or the commanding officer, the only person that or board that can change anything would be the PCRB, but nobody within our agency. Now, I will say this: it can be appealed to the next level, like I mentioned. So, should it be appealed to the chief of police? The chief of police could change the decision made, but that would be the only way that would happen.
Hey, Captain Taylor, this is Assistant City Manager Davis. Can you take just a moment to talk about the integrity of the internal records management system that you utilize?
Yeah, so we use a system that the only folks that have access to this system are the members of internal affairs. Everything is maintained within that main system. We don't give out the personnel records, obviously, not only for confidentiality, but for state law. I mean, everything is maintained here and for that purpose, to maintain the integrity of the system.
And I guess a follow-up to the follow-up, are the supervisors held to the same standards as the officers? How often are supervisors investigated by the Professional Standards Division?
Absolutely. In fact, we have policy that pertains directly to supervisors, in essence, holding them more accountable than we would a regular officer, because they're supervisors. We expect them to act in a certain manner. How often are they investigated? I don't have an exact number for you on that.
Okay. Any last minute burning questions? All righty, I will turn it back over to Ms. Franca. We appreciate your questions.
Thank you all so very much. Thank you for taking your time and to be here today. I think I see, does Terry have another question? Oh, it was just a thank you message. There are a couple of city staff here that are dedicated to this commission. They're always here being a part of what we do and helping us along the way. We want to take a moment to thank them for the hard work and all that they do behind the scenes to make this all possible for the city of Greensboro. We also have some police officers here with us today, as well as the Assistant City Manager, Nathaniel Trey Davis. We want to thank him for being a part of this and for continuing to make this process so much more better and much more transparent. Assistant City Manager Trey Davis, thank you so much for your time and effort as well. And we also have Sharon Hightower, the City Council, one of the City Council members, who is always with us and has shown a lot of dedication to making sure that this commission and all that we do is, continue to work well for the community members that we serve. So I just want to take a moment to acknowledge them and to thank each and every one of them for all the hard work, as well as the members of the GCJAC Commission and the PCRB. Thanks to each of you, because without you, this will not be possible. Lastly, I want to take a moment to say thank you to Captain Tabler. You have done an excellent job presenting to us today, making all the details clear. And we learned a few things, Captain Tabler. We learned a few things, although we're part of the system, but you also added on to what we already know. So thank you for being so informative and for leading this for us, making sure that it actually works for our community. Without further ado, we will, we're going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting, but you will be receiving additional information from Letitia McNeil. Letitia is the coordinator for the GCJAC. And, she's the brains and, the lady that makes everything we do so much more stronger and better, preparing things for us. She's the coordinator of the GCJAC. Letitia, thank you so very much. Without you, I don't know where we will be. We appreciate all you continue to do for us. And Letitia will let you know about our next meeting. And we hope everyone stays safe. Jay Webb, who is the chair of the GCJAC committee, will say something real quickly. But everybody stay safe and have a good night. Thank you all so very much.
Yeah, this was great. I will say, Captain Taylor, that this is a much needed process. We, this past summer, were handing out actually flyers and cards that had the complaint process on it. And we want to continue to educate the community on how to file a complaint. I think in some cases, there may be complaints that are out there, but some of our citizens don't know how to file. So we would like to do this again, because I think the more people that come to this and are knowledgeable, I think the better our process will be. And I think it also helps with bridging the gap between law enforcement and the community.
Sir, I appreciate it.
So, if I may, this is Letitia McNeil. Just really quick before we go, there have been questions regarding the recording. This meeting was recorded tonight, and the hope is that this will end up being on the GCJAC webpage, so that for people who may not have been able to attend this evening, they can go back and look at it.
Thanks, Letitia. And also each of the community members on this call tonight, on the Zoom meeting tonight, please go out there and spread the word. Most people don't know that this process exists or how to go about doing it. I hope you've learned something here today, and we'll let others know in the community that, it's something that they can utilize. So please spread the word, and thank you all so much. We look forward to seeing you at a later date. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good evening.